For retirees and Americans abroad. If you're living outside the United States and depending on Social Security, you need to hear this urgent update. The U.S. government has just confirmed new rules that could cut off benefits for seniors, SSDI recipients, and even survivors living overseas. These changes don't just affect how much you get paid, they could determine whether you receive your Social Security at all. For decades, millions of retirees have chosen to live abroad to stretch their savings, enjoy retirement, or reunite with family. But under the latest regulations, your country of residence matters more than ever. Certain countries are now considered restricted or banned, meaning the Social Security Administration may stop sending payments if you live there even if you've worked and paid into the system your entire life. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering your Lifeline monthly check has been frozen simply because of the country you're in. That's the reality many Americans abroad could face under these new restrictions. So who's affected? Which countries are on the do not pay list? And what can you do right now to protect your retirement income? Stay tuned, because in this video, I'll break down the latest Social Security rules, the banned countries list, and the critical steps retirees must take today to make sure your benefits don't disappear. If you're planning to retire abroad or already living outside the United States, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell because this information could save you thousands of dollars in benefits. The reality is that the Social Security Administration doesn't just send your monthly check anywhere in the world without restrictions. There are specific rules, regulations, and yes, even a list of countries where your hard-earned Social Security benefits can be suspended or terminated entirely. This isn't some distant policy that affects a few people, it's a growing concern that's touching the lives of hundreds of thousands of American retirees who thought they could enjoy their golden years wherever they chose. But why would the government restrict where you can receive benefits you've already earned? The reasons are complex and rooted in international relations, diplomatic considerations, and federal regulations that most people never think about when they're planning their retirement dreams. The Social Security Administration operates under strict federal guidelines that tie benefit distribution to U.S. foreign policy, Treasury Department sanctions, and international payment processing capabilities. Let's start with the countries where Social Security payments are completely prohibited. Cuba tops this list, and it's been this way for decades due to the ongoing trade embargo and diplomatic tensions between the United States and Cuba. If you're an American citizen living in Cuba, your Social Security benefits will be suspended, period. There are no exceptions, no workarounds, and no appeals process that will change this reality. The same applies to North Korea, where the combination of sanctions, lack of diplomatic relations, and the impossibility of secure payment processing makes benefit distribution impossible. What about other countries that might surprise you? Belarus has joined this restricted list in recent years, particularly following the political upheaval and international sanctions imposed after the 2020 elections and subsequent government crackdowns. American retirees who moved to Belarus thinking they could stretch their Social Security dollars further have found themselves in a difficult position, forced to either move to an approved country or lose their benefits entirely. The situation becomes even more complex when we look at countries where payments are restricted but not completely banned. Take Russia, for example. Following the invasion of Ukraine and the subsequent rounds of international sanctions, Social Security payments to Russia have become increasingly problematic. While not officially banned, the practical challenges of processing payments, currency restrictions, and banking limitations have made it nearly impossible for many American retirees to receive their benefits reliably. Have you ever wondered what happens if you're already living in one of these countries when the restrictions are imposed? The stories are heartbreaking. Martha, a 68-year-old retiree from Ohio, had been living comfortably in Belarus for 3 years when the restrictions hit. She had moved there to be closer to her daughter's family and to make her Social Security benefits stretch further in a country with a lower cost of living. Suddenly, her monthly payments stopped, and she faced an impossible choice: abandon the life she had built or lose the income she had spent 40 years earning. The process isn't immediate, and the Social Security Administration does provide notice, but the timeline can be surprisingly short. Typically, You'll receive a letter explaining that payments will be suspended within 30 to 60 days unless you can provide documentation proving you've moved to an approved country. But what if moving isn't financially feasible or personally practical? This is where thousands of American retirees find themselves trapped in an impossible situation. Iran presents another layer of complexity in this discussion. Due to comprehensive sanctions and the absence of diplomatic relations, Social Security payments to Iran have been prohibited for years. American citizens living in Iran, whether by choice or circumstance, cannot receive their Social Security benefits. This affects not just retirees who might have moved there, but also American citizens who found themselves in Iran due to family obligations or other life circumstances. What about countries that aren't officially banned but present significant challenges? Venezuela is a prime example of this gray area. While Social Security payments aren't technically prohibited, the economic chaos, currency instability, and banking system breakdown have made it practically impossible for many American retirees to access their benefits reliably. The Social Security Administration can issue payments, but getting that money into usable form in Venezuela has become a nightmare for many recipients. The impact extends beyond just the monthly Social Security check. Medicare coverage is another crucial consideration that many retirees overlook when planning their international retirement. Did you know that Medicare doesn't provide coverage outside the United States in most cases? This means that American retirees living abroad not only have to worry about their Social Security payments but also about maintaining health insurance coverage, which becomes exponentially more expensive and complex when you're living in a country where Social Security payments are restricted or banned. Afghanistan represents a particularly tragic example of how quickly these situations can change. American citizens who had been working or living in Afghanistan, including contractors, military personnel, and aid workers who had planned to retire there or nearby, found their Social Security benefit planning completely disrupted following the Taliban takeover and subsequent suspension of normal banking and diplomatic relations. So what can you do if you're planning to retire abroad or already living outside the United States? The first step is understanding that this landscape is constantly changing. Countries can be added to or removed from restricted lists based on changing diplomatic relations, security concerns, or international sanctions. What's approved today might be restricted tomorrow, and what's restricted today might become available again in the future. Myanmar, formerly Burma, illustrates this point perfectly. Following the military coup in 2021, Social Security payment processing became increasingly difficult and eventually was suspended in many cases due to banking restrictions and security concerns. American retirees who had been successfully receiving their benefits in Myanmar suddenly found themselves unable to access their money through normal channels. The documentation requirements for receiving Social Security benefits abroad are extensive and often misunderstood. Are you prepared for the paperwork involved in maintaining your benefits while living internationally? You'll need to file regular reports confirming your address, marital status, and living arrangements. You'll need to provide proof of life certificates in some cases. And if you're living in a country with restrictions, you'll need to maintain documentation showing that you're eligible to receive payments despite your location. Syria is another country where Social Security payments are effectively impossible due to ongoing conflict, sanctions, and the breakdown of normal banking systems. American citizens in Syria, whether they're there voluntarily or due to circumstances beyond their control, face significant challenges in accessing any U.S.-based financial services, including Social Security benefits. What happens to your Social Security account if payments are suspended? This is a crucial point that many people misunderstand. Your benefits aren't typically canceled permanently, they're suspended. This means that if you move to an approved country and can provide the necessary documentation, your payments can potentially be restored. However, you generally won't receive retroactive payments for the time your benefits were suspended. The situation in Somalia represents another complex case. Due to ongoing security concerns, lack of stable banking infrastructure, and diplomatic challenges, Social Security payments to Somalia are effectively impossible. This affects not just American retirees who might have connections to the region, but also American citizens who might find themselves in Somalia due to family or humanitarian reasons. Have you considered how these restrictions might affect your family members? If you're married to a non-U.S. citizen who is eligible for Social Security benefits based on your work record, their benefits can also be affected by these geographic restrictions. This adds another layer of complexity to international retirement planning that many couples don't consider until it's too late. The Treasury Department's role in these restrictions is often overlooked but critically important. The Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC, maintains sanctions lists that directly impact where Social Security payments can be sent. When new sanctions are imposed or existing ones are modified, it can immediately affect Social Security recipients living in those areas. What about temporary visits to restricted countries? This is where the rules become particularly nuanced. Short-term visits to restricted countries typically won't affect your Social Security benefits, but extended stays can trigger suspensions. The Social Security Administration generally uses a threshold of 30 days outside of approved countries before beginning the process of suspending benefits, but this can vary based on specific circumstances and the particular country involved. Yemen presents yet another example of how regional instability can affect Social Security payments. The ongoing conflict, humanitarian crisis, and breakdown of normal banking and postal services have made it virtually impossible for American citizens in Yemen to receive Social Security benefits through normal channels. The appeals process for benefit suspensions due to geographic restrictions is limited and often unsuccessful. What recourse do you have if you believe your benefits have been wrongfully suspended? While you can appeal the decision, the burden of proof is typically on you to demonstrate that you're not actually residing in a restricted country or that special circumstances apply to your situation. Banking relationships play a crucial role in this entire system. Even if a country isn't officially banned, if U.S. banks are prohibited from processing transactions to that country or if local banks can't receive international transfers, your Social Security benefits effectively become inaccessible. This has been a particular problem in countries like Iran and North Korea, where comprehensive sanctions have made normal banking relationships impossible. Are there any legal ways to work around these restrictions? Some American retirees have attempted to use relatives' addresses in approved countries or to have their benefits sent to U.S. banks that they access while traveling. However, the Social Security Administration has strict rules about benefit recipients' actual places of residence, and attempting to circumvent these rules can result in fraud charges and permanent loss of benefits. The impact on American expatriate communities has been profound. Long-established American communities in certain countries have been forced to relocate or have seen their numbers decline significantly as retirees move to countries where they can reliably receive their Social Security benefits. This has disrupted decades-old expatriate networks and support systems. Looking toward the future, these restrictions are likely to become more complex rather than simpler. As international relations shift and new security concerns emerge, the list of countries where Social Security payments are restricted could expand. Climate change, political instability, and economic sanctions all contribute to an increasingly uncertain landscape for American retirees living abroad. So what's the bottom line for Americans planning to retire internationally? The key is staying informed and planning ahead. Before you make any permanent moves abroad, research not just the current status of Social Security payments to your intended destination, but also the political and economic stability that might affect future payment processing. Consider having backup plans and maintaining connections to countries where your benefits are definitely secure. If you found this information valuable and want to stay updated on changes to Social Security rules, international retirement planning, and other financial topics that affect Americans living abroad, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Hit that like button if this video helped you understand these complex rules, and share it with anyone you know who might be planning an international retirement. Leave a comment below telling us about your experiences with Social Security payments abroad or any questions you might have about these restrictions. We read every comment and often create follow-up videos based on your questions and experiences.